All right, and we are back. Looks like that video is finally fixed up. So I have Basil Miracle here with me, and today we're going to be talking about all the problems of social media and the possible alternatives that we've been developing. So we're going to kick it off, and we're going to go over to the browser here. Let's see here. So today we're starting off with talking about Facebook. Basil, do you want to start this off?
Oh, Facebook. Sure. So Facebook, in my experience, has been sort of a cesspool. The page you have up is a list of crimes that I found, and I've seen way more in my time that have been live streamed. Things that no civilized, sane human being should ever engage in have been streamed on Facebook. Uh, that's It's not just Facebook. It goes across basically all of our social media. But I think Facebook is a great example of why we shouldn't do certain things. And what you have up there um, are live streamed murders. People have been beaten to death, shot, or various other things. Even while they're live streaming, or in addition to just deciding to kill somebody and put it on a live stream. And it's not the only thing Facebook. It's not the only, like, live streams are not live stream murders. Not the only thing. There's quite a lot of history with Facebook that encourages the exact opposite of anything you'd want in a society: division, hatred, calls for violence. It's one of the reasons I left Facebook, among other things, because my experience with Facebook was um, constantly arguing with people. Just um, I put the I put my religious preference as atheist when I was on back in 2008, and I would get on the atheist board to talk to other people, and usually we would talk about things like music or art or climate change, things like that. And then you would have Christian proselytizers come in and just start fights, quoting Bible verses at you. Some of them telling you you're going to go to hell, you're going to go to hell, and so on and so forth. And basically, all of the real discussions that people would have degenerated into fighting the people coming in and just causing problems. That was back in 2008. I personally got sick of it, and I just deleted my account. And I'm not too surprised that Facebook is kind of spiraling down that hole, because it has a long history of getting people riled up, because it gives more ad revenue, it gives more attention. It's not good, but it meets their bottom line, their income. I don't know if you want to talk about some of your experiences with Facebook.
Oh yeah, I left Facebook for the last time about I would say a year and a half ago, and reason I left Facebook about a year and a half ago is just because I got so tired of just seeing, for one, nothing that was related to what I wanted to look at. For two, uh, which was this was the big one, was that every time I got on there, it was just people arguing with each other about just
Mhm.
ridiculous things, like off the wall things. Just it just became very overwhelming, and so that's sort of why I was like, you know what, I'm done. I don't miss it. If I need to talk to somebody, I'll call them on the phone or I'll text them. I don't need to see everybody in the world's opinion on something in particular. So yeah, it's just I saw a lot of hate speech. Saw a lot of people like, in particular, like ganging up on me if I said something that they didn't agree with. You know, um, and it was nothing you know that was bad that I said. It was more like talking about climate change or talking about you know different topics like that. And then these people would be like, "You don't know, it's not human made," and all this stuff, and just nonsense would be coming out, even though everybody knows and scientists know, like 99 or 98% of scientists say that mankind's made climate change and all that stuff. But you have all these people just ganging up and attacking, and it's just a very unhealthy environment. So that's sort of
Mhm.
what we're trying to get away from here. Just get away from that unhealthy, um, just toxic environment, because that doesn't help anybody at all. We have another article here. It says Facebook is a doomsday machine. This is from December 15th, 2020. It says the architecture of the modern web poses grave threats to humanity. It's not too late to save ourselves. And it's just, I don't know. It just becomes such a, like I said, it's just a very toxic environment. It's allowed people to get together, to express interest in taking down government officials, for example, like the group of people that met through social media, right, to try to kidnap Governor Whitmer here in the state of Michigan. Like, it just it pushes extremist views,
Mhm.
and because they're like, oh, that's that'll get people to stay on the platform more, and then they can discuss more. That's all about this algorithmic uh, driven nonsense, right? So Basil, do you want to break down like what an algorithm is and all that? I know we talked about.
Oh yeah, that's so all of social media is basically driven by some form of algorithm, and an algorithm is basically a stepwise procedural uh, mathematical process for doing something. There are algorithms that run. I mean, there are even hard physical algorithms that run things like clocks, like actual mechanical clocks. It's just a way of getting a repeated solution to something. So algorithms in social media, they have a set priority of different things they want to push upward to the viewers, and those processes, however they're done, coded, are just that. They are given a set of inputs that they want them to find and trend. So, you know, YouTube, good example for that. Um, I have never watched a Sniper Wolf video on YouTube in my life, and I never will. But I see it every single day because it's popular, and popularity is one of the things that pushes a video to the surface, and that's one of the criteria in the algorithm. It's just another number in the equation as to how to get content to users, and they vary. Just saying, oh, the algorithm. Well, the algorithms vary across all platforms and even different versions of the same platform. YouTube changes its algorithm on the regular, and if you ever search, a good example is Hitler fighting a skeleton, and Hitler in a bikini fighting a skeleton. The absurdity of these things, and they're produced to feed the algorithm because people that have made those videos figured out what it is the key criteria that the algorithm is looking for. Not whether it's a good thing, not whether people should see it, not whether it's reasonable or sane, or I mean, YouTube. I've seen more things in my life that I'd never want to see ever again. Hitler in a bikini is one of them, but that's that's how all of these social media networks work, and how all of them in general across all platforms, they have some sort of proprietary mechanism that takes certain inputs and then feeds that uh, input into the algorithm. The algorithm does calculations. How popular is your video? Um, how long ago was it posted? Things like how popular the channel is, or such and such. It doesn't really matter. And most of the time, it's closed. It's a black box. Nobody knows except the people that program it. Um, and that is largely why we get terrible things on Facebook or YouTube or various other places.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's why we sort of came up with our platform to give an alternative to all this, right? So, with our system, there's basically I guess you can call it an algorithm, right? But it's all chronological based content, which then you have the complete control to filter it on the fly. So you can filter it, by images, by audio, by text, or by everything at once, just by the content type. But then you can also filter it by where it's coming from. If it's your personal life, your work life, your school life, or your romance life. And then there's sub filters in there, but it's just you have complete control over how you see your content now. And instead of an algorithm deciding, hey, this is what you're going to see today, it's it really changes the game on that. Do you want to speak a little bit on that too, Basil?
Yeah, I feel personally that I don't want the algorithm of some company that I don't know what it's doing just constantly feeding me things. Um, YouTube, I know we're talking about social media, and it's YouTube is sort of social media, but I've had more experience with it than Facebook since I quit Facebook so long ago. Um, YouTube doesn't care at all what it is that I have historically looked at, or I erase my history all the time anyway. But um, it doesn't. Even when I do search and I leave the history on, it doesn't um, put two and two together. It will force videos up that I have no interest in seeing, not more than not any interest in seeing, but things that are totally irrelevant to what I have searched. And I'm searching there to find something. I don't want to see stuff that has no relevancy to that search, but YouTube sticks it in there anyway because its algorithm is forced to do so, uh, because the YouTube actual people that run it want you to see those things, regardless of what your search is. And I think personally, how we've designed things is that you should have total control over what it is that you're seeing, and you shouldn't be restricted from seeing things, or you shouldn't be forced to see things either way. If you're searching for something, or you're organizing your content, or um, say you're on UPass and you're organizing your content that you want to see, it should always only bring back those things that are 100% certain that you would be interested in seeing them, and it shouldn't try to slide in things that you don't want in there. I mean, um, I don't want to see a barf cake. If anybody has ever watched Filthy Frank, I've seen that once. I don't ever want to see that again. I only watched it to sheer morbid curiosity that we've degenerated so far. um, but I, I I can't imagine why you would want to see that if you're searching about how to mod Skyrim and you want to see how to use the construction kit, or something like that. Those things are not relevant, and so they shouldn't be in there. They have no place. And I feel that's how we've designed everything, is so that you have control as a user, and we don't just force things down your throat. And every user has their own preferences, their own setup, so that you get what you want, you search what you wanted. There's no assuming you want this or assuming you want that. It just, the algorithm that I've laid out is basically your search preferences that you specifically tell it the things that you want to see will be what is shown, and unrelated things that have no bearing on that just won't be shown. And that's part of why it's UPass, right? It's your control. You're the user. You should have total control over what it is that you're seeing, or um, not having things just simply deleted or moved or hidden. Um, Talking about social media, one good example is Twitter's shadow banning system, where they don't outright ban you, but nobody can ever see your posts. They just don't ever trend up because they don't allow you to. And I don't think that's fair. I'm a big proponent of um, open standards that we agree as you pass. We agree that these are the way that this is the way that we will show you content, and you will know that's how we show you content. And there's not going to be any, oh, there's the what was it, ad apocalypse that YouTube had a while ago, where they changed the algorithm and it caused a whole bunch of channels to get demonetized and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's it should be about the user, and it should be about you controlling it. Because algorithms just do they're just methods to do things for us to make it convenient. So we're the human beings. We should be the ones in control, not the computer feeding us things, and we have no ability to switch off. No more Sniper Wolf or Mr. Beast or things that I would rather drive nails into my eyes than see. Uh, so that
Yeah, and that kind of stuff, I think that even applies to like LinkedIn and things like that. It seems that when I even talk about our own company on LinkedIn, it seems like I barely get any engagement like that. But if I bring up something like, oh, Elon Musk, right? If I bring up Elon Musk in one post, I had over 25,000 views on one post, and it was only, oh, I don't know, 3 lines of, 3 sentences, not even a full paragraph, technically, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, and I, it's just, it boggles my mind, and I was talking about Twitter taking, him taking over Twitter, and then the problems that he's going to be opening the door with for the that whole blue check mark thing, because his whole thing now is about he wants to charge $8 a month to verify that you are who you say you are, except here's the caveat: they're not checking your government credentials, they're not checking your photo ID, they're not checking anything. All you need is a debit card or a credit card that says, here's my $8 and I'm Basil Miracle, even though I'm Rob Atkins. But I could say I'm Basil Miracle, or I could say I'm president of the United States. In fact, we saw that kind of stuff. There was a tweet somebody made, and it looks like it's George W., and he says, I miss killing Iraqis. And I'm like, just, that kind of stuff. And it has the blue check mark, right? And that's always been historically, prior to Musk taking over, it said, oh, that was, we checked their government credentials, or, checked their photo ID. We know that's who they are. But now it breaks the whole point, because if it's not like, what's the point of the verification system that doesn't verify anybody? Then it's just saying, oh, I had $8, And then he also wants to filter that by, if you pay for the $8, then your post will get seen more compared to others that don't pay the $8. So that's how they're going to have their algorithm change.
Pay to win.
Yeah. So I don't know. And, we've talked about for Singularity OSN, for the network itself, the social network. We've talked about that having a monthly fee, but every single person on there would be a verified account. There would be no, well, you didn't pay your money, so you can be a bot account or you can be a fake account. We won't have fake accounts on our platform because of this credible verified account system. Where it tracks, checks your, it does not track you. So I misspoke there. Basically, when you create your account for the first time, it checks your location to make sure you're at your registered address, right? And then checks your photo ID or driver's license or state ID and says, okay, this is Basil Miracle or this is Rob Atkins or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
and you only need it for the very first initial time, and then you're a credible account, and the end. So that sort of sets us apart right there, because we're not going to have this free for all Wild West where nobody knows who anybody is, and then we start talking about, or somebody's just is like, oh, let's talk about all this nonsense, and make up flat earths and whatever else, other kind of nonsense that's out there. So I'm going to switch it back over to this whole thing about Twitter. Basil found this today. And this is talking about the triggers of violence and abuse against women on Twitter. But it's not just against women. This kind of stuff goes against anybody. If you're basically disagree with somebody, then it's almost like high school mentality. I sort of view it as, right? It's like everybody gangs up on the kid or the person because they disagree, and then it's just this whole mob mentality, right? And that's, what kind of society do we want to live in? So, that's why we sort of came up with our alternatives to the thing. Do you want to speak a little bit on this article at all, or?
Yeah, also I'd like to say it's exactly like high school. All of the platforms, it's a popularity contest, and not about what you say being right or even you having a voice. It's about whether you're popular or not. Um, I've never cared for that in high school, and I was never in any cliques because I don't personally care for that sort of behavior. If you have something meaningful to say, it doesn't matter to me whether or not what color your skin is, or how popular you are, or how rich you are or poor you are. It's just boils down to whether what you say is actually right or not, or meaningful or not. That really should be the decider. But I'd like to point out something in that article. If you can
This one
scroll
here?
down.
Okay.
Yeah, there's where she says, okay, on Twitter, yeah, this on Twitter, general abuse. I have a hard time reading here.
Oh, do you want me to read it?
Oh, yeah, you go ahead and read it.
Okay. On Twitter, the general abuse I receive comes after I write opinion pieces. Expressing an opinion or a strong opinion will get you roasted online. The most memorable is when someone has a large following and all the followers jump in. You just don't expect it. You shouldn't expect it. Attitudes to women are heinous online.
Mm-hmm. And that it's not just women. I've seen the same sort of thing with anybody that somebody disagrees with. We've gotten to a point with social media where it's not we can't have civil discourse. I just don't agree with you, so I'm going to club you over the head. I don't agree with you, so I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to get you fired from your job. I'm going to dox you, get your personal information, show up at your home, threaten you with violence. And you could search all day long and you can find countless examples. This is just one.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with Facebook. I remember years ago when I read the news of the first live streamed murder that was on Facebook. It's it's not about a community. It's about popularity. It's about mob mentality. And I think that underlies the problem altogether with all social media is that there's no decorum. There's no civility. It's, I don't agree with you, therefore you should die. And that's becoming louder and louder as the years progress. It's personally the reason I've never had a Twitter account. I've never had a TikTok account. I don't sign into YouTube. I don't have a Facebook account because I don't want those kind of communities. If I had neighbors like that, I would move out of the community. It's just absurd. But
Exactly. Yeah.
online, we behave as if these things that we have worked to build in our society are meaningless, like humanity to each other, civility, decorum, discussion. If somebody is wrong, shouldn't we be able to discuss that in a meaningful way and show how it is that they're wrong or right? And then that be part of the public discussion. Then we can move on with our lives instead of degenerating into nothing more than poo flinging chimps, which is actually an insult to chimps, honestly. And we are far, far more brutal and awful to each other now than any chimp I've ever seen be to, except that video with a chimp and a frog. That you can look that up yourself. I don't encourage anybody to see that.
I'm sure it's even been shared on social media platforms. I was going to say something too. So when I was in college back in 2003, our English class, basically we had to do different papers on things. And I came up with this paper comparing the book Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to what I called them lurkers on the internet or something like that. I can't remember the exact wording. But basically, I was saying that people behave differently online because there weren't any repercussions, right? If you went into a public square and you just started insulting everybody left and right, well, you're either going to make the wrong person angry and they're going to sock you, right? Or somebody's going to take you away and they're going to say, this person's a nut, And that's sort of what we do now. We hide behind our screens. Yeah, lurkers behind the screen. That's what I called them. So we hide behind the screens and, we either use usernames or we create fake profiles, or even if we have our own real name on there, it's like people don't really care, because there's no repercussion, right? At the end of the day, there's no consequence for putting out hateful rhetoric. There's no consequence for being racist. There's no consequence for, and I mean, people can flag your account and then you can just create another account because there's no verified credible account system, and then you're back on within a matter of minutes or hours. So it I don't know, it gets so frustrating. And again, that's sort of why we built this whole platform, was to have civil discussions, right? You can agree to disagree on topics. You don't have to be at each other's throats. And also at the same time, we wanted a platform that's not going to push hateful rhetoric or misogynistic rhetoric or racist rhetoric or whatever it might be, from conspiracy theories like the earth being flat. I guess that's what you'd put that under. I don't know. I mean, or alternative facts or whatever they want to call it.
It's called lunacy if you really...
It's called what?
You want to get technical. Lunacy.
Oh, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like,
lunatics.
How people come up with different terminology for, I don't know, trying to substantiate what they're saying, even if it's...
Yeah, that's rebranding. And
yeah.
It's still a turd by any other name. Is still a turd. Doesn't matter what you call it.
That's about it. So yeah, I guess we'll continue on. So that's just some on Facebook, Twitter. This is a recent article about Twitter facing dire problems on multiple fronts. This is talking about Jack Dorsey. After he agreed to roll his completely... What am I saying? After agreeing to roll his completely liquid shares of Twitter, worth almost $1 billion into the new private company, Elon Musk has managed in less than 2 weeks to alienate a number of major advertisers, lay off almost half of its staff, tell workers they can't work remotely. He's facing a potential FTC violation, which could be billions of dollars in fines. And then he sent a very bleak outlook for the company on Wednesday, one day prior to a town hall meeting in which he said the company was bleeding billions of dollars and could end up filing for bankruptcy. This just came one day after Musk emailed staff on Wednesday that the economic picture ahead is dire. He added that he planned to end Twitter's remote work policy and come into the office at least 40 hours per week. And I want to stress at least. So it's a whole, this is more of an internal thing for the people that work for companies like this. Obviously he wants you to work more than 40 hours because at least means a minimum. I don't know. It's just from him already, Elon Musk, the owner of a platform, already pushing some false information. And I don't know if anybody here has seen it, but basically, in a nutshell, that unfortunate attack against Nancy Pelosi's house, right? This guy broke in, had a hammer, beat her husband, and then Elon Musk posted this thing and then ended up taking it down several hours later. But basically, Musk was saying, "Oh yeah, that was Nancy Pelosi's husband's gay lover coming in to I don't know." And then they had a disagreement or some nonsense. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and Nancy Pelosi's husband was in boxers and all that stuff, and that's just, it's a scary thought, and it doesn't have to just be about this topic, right? It can be any topic. If you have enough followers, and if it's sensational enough, look at how much damage that can cause, like misinforming people, right? And Musk says, well, I'm all about free speech and things like that. Well, there's a difference with free speech, right? You can't, in real life, you can't go into a movie theater and shout fire, right? Or you can't shout bomb on an airplane, or things like that, right?
That's mass panic.
Exactly. And I don't really see much difference in some of the actions that these social media companies allow, right? If it's sexism or racism or whatever it might be, hateful speech, this kind of rhetoric gets, is allowed and propagated then. I mean, look at what we were talking about earlier, where those people were live streamed either getting killed or murdering somebody or suicides. I mean, and the fact that that's getting viral, I think that's the most disturbing thing, that people are sharing this kind of stuff, right? I don't know. It just seems like it's sort of devolving our society.
Well, to interrupt you for a second, you said earlier when you were talking about lurkers behind the screen, you said there are no consequences. Well, there are consequences. Even if you're the person behind the screen and you think you're anonymous, there's no human being alive that can escape the consequences of their actions. But on a broader scope for society, pushing these sort of things, and especially doing it anonymously, cowardly, in my view. If you really stand behind your words, you'll say it with your actual face, and you'll speak it loudly and have no problem with it. But if you're a coward and you want to instigate violence, you'll hide. You'll always hide. And so there's very real consequences. We are living these consequences. I'm personally speaking, I've used the internet since I was about 15 years old, and it was not like this when I was 15 years old. It has dramatically changed, and I remember when Facebook came about, that Facebook ushered in an era of ever increasing hatefulness toward one another, an ever increasing need to I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, or you need to die. You're offending my, whatever. We have trigger warnings now. I did trigger warnings. You get triggered and you want to commit violence. That's absolute barbarity. You're not a civilized human being. You're a barbarian. That's not acceptable. If someone says something you don't like, then you go on with your day. Oh well, they said something I don't like. The old saying of sticks and stones. Well, the words, somebody doesn't agree with you, is not going to end your life. But you going out and destroying their career, getting them fired from their job, getting them ostracized from society, that has very real effects.
Yeah, or inciting violence, right, against somebody because you disagree with them.
Well, I consider it to be a very I don't know if that's violence necessarily per se, but it's very real damage you're doing to somebody if you get them fired from your job. And how many cancelings have we seen where mobs get together and they just want to, that's a person's livelihood we're talking about. If they can't work, they can't make money, they can't feed themselves, you're basically condemning them to death. It's no different than going and shooting them in the face. It just takes longer. I mean, what's the difference there? So these people that hide behind this anonymity, which in today's internet there is no such thing as anonymity. You can be found by many, 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 many different traces that you leave online. Whether it's the advertiser IDs that your phone is emitting through ultrasound that's communicating with other phones, uh, to you leaving your mic on and typing on your keyboard, because the keys that you type, the sound is unique to each key, so they can reverse engineer what is you're typing on your keyboard, or the ads that track you with tracking cookies, or any number of things. And even if you try to eliminate all these things, there are still ways to find you. You're not truly anonymous, but you are truly a coward if that's what you do, and you hide in the shadows to torture people just because they differ in opinion from you. There's no way that a society can exist and have civil discourse with that sort of behavior. It is ultimately doomed to destroy itself. So the article in the Atlantic, look at the title. Yeah, is Facebook a doomsday machine? My experience, yeah. I've seen more awful things from Facebook than I've seen just about in my entire life in real life. Um, and I've seen people physically violent. I've seen quite a number of things, and nothing compares to what Facebook has brought about, and they profit from doing that. They profit from provoking people to violence. And at the end of the day, what happens? You destroy your society. You burn it to the ground. By damaging the members of the society, you're damaging the society itself. And in turn, you're causing its collapse. And we are living through that right now. As part of what has gone on is largely due to what social media allows on its platform. And I'm not saying about forbidding people. I want to say I'm for free speech, but real free speech. I'm not for yelling bomb on an airplane or screaming fire in a cinema just so I can get my kicks. I'm not a person that accepts that as civil society. We should be able to honestly look at what it is that we're discussing, and actually get to the root of the truth. And that should always be what we as human beings do, because the only way forward and progress is through the truth. The earth isn't flat. Eratosthenes, thousands of years ago, with sticks, measured the shadows on different places on the earth and was able to calculate the circumference of the earth to a very high degree of accuracy. This is a Greek man with sticks measuring shadows. This is what I'm talking about. They got to the truth of it, and then in the Greek world, there was no such thing as a flat earth. They knew that the earth was round because all the other celestial bodies in the heavens were also round. Now, they may have had wrong ideas about them, but getting to the truth is how you progress. And that's the core of science. If you're a science-minded person, is you interrogate everything to get the truth out of it. Whatever else there is, doesn't matter if that person's popular or not. It doesn't matter. Elon Musk could say the earth is flat tomorrow. It's not going to make the earth flat. You cannot make the earth flat because you want it to be. You're being upset that somebody said something different from you is not going to make them say it any less. What it's going to do is boil over and create violence, tension, fighting, uncivility, degeneracy. That's just what has always happened.
Yeah, and it causes, these different camps like we were talking about earlier, right? And that's sort of the problem that social media contributes to this whole divided camp, left and right, and whatever it might be. It sort of tears us apart. So, so that's sort of why, like I said, we've been trying to build a platform that will, at the very least, mitigate a lot of these problems, so it does not encourage extremist views that rile up certain people, and then everybody wants to get in that high school mentality and then go on the rampage and go attack everybody. Because what does that solve at the end of the day? Does it fix anything? I don't think so. I mean, it seems like at the end of the day, by doing that, all you're doing is hurting your society and yourself. So we should be able to go back to have civil discussions, and even if you disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean you have to hate them. It doesn't mean that you want to go attack them. It's just something that you're not going to agree on, and that's okay. That's what makes democracy and free speech and all that happen.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody agreed on the same thing, we probably wouldn't even have progress, right? I mean, because then you're never going to critically think about problems, and you're never going to think about making anything better if there are problems, because so let's see what else. So we'd been looking on LinkedIn lately, and a lot of people have been leaving Twitter. They're trying to find alternatives to these platforms, right? They're tired of the hateful rhetoric. They're tired of the speech. When I say the speech, like the hate speech and all that stuff, they want a place where they can communicate civilly, and so a lot of people have been going to Mastodon, and of course, this is a whole decentralized platform. You can basically spin up your own decentralized server, from my understanding of how Mastodon works. And then you can host a number of people on there. And there's, again, no central authority to stop any nefarious activity. So here we go with pedophiles and child porn on the Mastodon social media platform. And so you're going from one realm of hell to another. I mean, it's basically what's going on, right? I don't know. Do you want to talk about it, Basil?
Yeah, it's sort of like that. Um, uh, I'm not at all surprised by a lot of this because in the article here it talks about how Mastodon is set up, and it says in their haste to flee Twitter, these influencers set up accounts on a social media platform called Mastodon without knowing much about the place where they were migrating to or anything about the kinds of communities that call Mastodon their home. To be fair, Mastodon makes it almost impossible to search for communities and contents across the Fediverse by design. So many of the newcomers have absolutely no idea who lives on Mastodon because they cannot see them. And that's that's when you allow these things. If you're a gardener and you allow weeds in your garden, you will have nothing but weeds. When you allow people to do things that are not allowed in real life, and we should look at that. If you can't do it in real life, why is it that you should be allowed to do it online? Why should you be able to kill and torture somebody? Why should you be able to commit theft of somebody's information or show up at their house and something like that? Um, so that's the problem with the decentralization, is that you create the very environment where, and not just pedophiles. I mean, really, you could throw a dart at the cowardly, unseemly side of human society, as they will take up posts there. Where there is not light, they will hide in the shadows. They won't come out in the daylight because they don't want people to actually call them out for the things they do. So the simple thing is, don't allow that environment, period. You just don't allow it, and it won't happen. If you're a gardener, don't and create the environment where weeds will grow. You go every day and you pluck any weed that appears and remove it from your garden, and your garden will be beautiful. It will thrive because the weeds that grow up will strangle out the things that you want to grow. And that's what happens in our society when we allow these environments to occur. And this is, broadly speaking, all social media. I have not yet seen one that takes the sort of lengths necessary to prohibit that environment. For the average person who wants to communicate with their friends, who maybe wants to share playing video games or whatever, they're not going to do any of that stuff. And for them, they won't see any of that. It won't be like it's imposing on them. It's not an authoritarian uh, uh, iron fisted approach. It's simple. You just don't create the environment. And if you don't create the environment, you don't get the corresponding results from said environment. It's like if you raise a child. If you raise a child and you punch them in the face every day, eventually one day they're either going to punch you in the face or they're going to go take it out on somebody else. That's how a lot of bullies get made. Their parents abuse them, and in turn, they become abusers. So, if you don't have that environment where the abuse exists, then in turn, you don't have the abuser being created. It's a cyclic system. You just get it over and over and over again. You have to break the cycle, stop the environment, stop the sorts of things that create that, and then you don't have it anymore. You don't have to go break down someone's door like a stormtrooper, or beat or abuse or scream at people. None of that needs to be done. Just don't create the environment. So again, we and I think I speak for both of us when I say we don't want a community where people are harassed or abused or any of that stuff. So we just won't create that kind of community. We want a community actually driven by the people in that community, giving them a say, giving them a voice as to how the community is run, so that we can all look at it and we can all see it and we can all agree on things that are bad, that are hurting us, and just not have those things. We can say, hey, to the person that would get on Twitter and wants to cancel X, X, Y, or Z. They want to cancel this person. We would just say to them, say, look, this is not how we run publicly. This is not how we allow our public space to be run. You're not going to say these things because they're part of our guidelines. And if you want to talk to your friends privately, fine, go ahead. But in the public square where you're discussing things, it should be done with a shared equal set of rules that we all apply to us. It doesn't matter if you have billions of dollars or not. You have the same rules applied to you, and not, oh, we're gonna shadow ban you, or we're gonna just destroy your account, or something like that. We could just point it out that this is, and also, one point I want to make as to our not creating the environment. Um, we have a public and a private space. Public space is like Twitter, how you're posting for everybody on Twitter. Private is your personal discussions with your friends or your family or whatever. But in the public space, if you go out, someone like Elon Musk, and you make a statement that's blatantly false and can be proved false, um, you can't take it down. It will be shown to be false, because that's how we learn, right? As human beings, you learn something is wrong and you learn from that mistake, but you don't hide it. If you hide your wet bed sheets because you pissed the bed in your drawer, someone's going to find them eventually.
Yeah.
You're not fooling anybody. But if we learn from that, get up and go to the bathroom before you have to go to bed. We learn from our mistakes, then we can actually grow as a society. But if we don't, then we get stuff like Twitter, where you can just take down an inconvenient post. You said something racist, hateful, evil, factually wrong. You're just drunk texting one night, drunk tweeting one night, and you just decided to, think before that's the lesson, right? Think before you say things. You don't go up to somebody on the street and just scream things at them, because likely they'll either call the cops or they'll just sock you in the mouth and put an end to it. So
exactly, and the approach we're taking, I almost view it as the way Germany took the approach to the concentration camps that the Nazis erected, right?
mm-hmm.
Those are all standing to this day, and all the families, all the Jews that were killed, at each house and all that stuff taken away, their plaques of their names are up there, so people don't forget, and they don't go back down that same kind of path. Because once you start erasing history, and once you start saying, we don't accept this today, this is not acceptable today. Well, that's true, right? It wasn't acceptable back then, but they had different standards back then. Obviously, the Nazi thing is not a different standard, so I don't want to have that construed, misinterpreted. But what I'm saying is that, yes, there was things done wrong in the past, but we should not, whitewash them, right? We should not just say, oh, it no longer exists, nobody sees it, because that doesn't solve anything at all. If we don't acknowledge the mistakes of the past, we definitely can't move forward into the future,
And we're definitely doomed to repeat said mistakes.
Exactly. And so we don't want to do that. I mean, at the same time, we don't want the platform to say, you can use racist slurs at somebody and hateful rhetoric at somebody, because we're not gonna allow you to just attack somebody nonstop or anything. You know what I mean? because that's not the kind of space, as Basil said, that we want to have for people, and people are tired of that kind of space. That's why they're looking for alternatives to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they've gone to TikTok, which is not even like a very similar type of social media anymore. It's very video content driven, algorithmic driven, and that I guess that sort of opens the door into talking about TikTok's problems. So you want to here? I'll bring up that. Let's see. So one of the main problems we have with TikTok is that the Chinese government is basically doing data mining on you, and they're a lot of people say, well, what's the problem if China gets my information? Well, if you look at how the Chinese government runs their country right now, it's very it's almost like a 1984 George Orwell state, right? Like, without the TV and the camera telling you what to do every single day inside your room, but they monitor where you're going, what you're doing, that kind of stuff. So considering the whole political atmosphere of things between the United States and China and all that stuff, and they're definitely going to be data mining Americans to see if there's any weaknesses they can exploit, basically. There's other reasons that they do it as well. So Basil, do you want to?
I'd also like to say, yeah, if you're not concerned about what China does with your data, and this is not even the first example, TikTok is one in a long line. I've seen many cyber attacks against things like healthcare infrastructure, where they'll steal patient data. If you're not concerned about that, I would pose one question to you. Do you think it's safe that China makes almost all of our products if they have our data and they don't really particularly care for us? It doesn't seem like a good combination, personally. But yeah, China is obviously doing that. They have a cyber warfare division to, I would say, rivals most countries all around the world, regardless, because they're very much oriented toward uh, supremacy in that regard. Um, and let's see, what was it years ago? Um, I read about, and I didn't ever think this. I played World of Warcraft. People have remember WoW, and not new WoW, but this was years ago. Um, they were forcing Chinese prisoners to basically mine gold farm for World of Warcraft. That's how invested they are in using any technological means to do whatever it is that they want to do. And it's only a matter of time before that data, which is, by the way, if companies are so invested in it, and as has been said before, you're the product, you're not the customer, you're the product, because you're feeding the algorithms that produce the ads, right? That show you the ads and all this other stuff. Um, that data has very real world implications. Just stop for a moment and think about, maybe you angrily tweeted something at somebody on Twitter, or you made a TikTok about how this person, is whatever. Do you want them to have your address? Because that happens. They get your address, and then what do they do with it? But now we're not talking about an individual actor. We're talking about an entire country that has been gathering untold terabytes of data, petabytes, exabytes of data. Who knows? Um, and it's very valuable because that's why everybody's mining it. You don't mine gold because nobody wants it. You mine it because it's valuable and everybody wants it. So you mine the user data. It's your data. It's you. Everything about you is being collected, and it should really bother anybody, regardless of generation, or social status or political party, that somebody else has all of this massive amounts of data that they can then use AI to go through and find targets. Hell, if you steal data from the health system, that could be used to make biological weapons. Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think that maybe your data could somehow someday come back to you in the form of a bioweapon. That's a possibility. That's the real world we live in. It's called bioinformatics. So, what do you do with that? If you don't care and you say, "Oh no, it's not important to me," then you're inviting more of that. Uh, and I think that the data should fundamentally be under the user's control, not under the corporation's control. I don't want your data. In fact, I want to state this. I really do not care about your data. I don't want it. I want it to be encrypted. And the less I have to think about it, the happier I am. The only data I want to manage is my own. And I've got terabytes of my own data I want to manage. I don't really want to have to go through that or build complex infrastructure to sort through it. Because the more data you have, the bigger the haystack is and the smaller the needle is. It becomes at a certain point, having so much data is actually it's a double-edged sword. It's going to cut you as much as it is your enemy, because you're not going to be able to find anything. You're not going to be able to accurately predict anything because at a certain point, the data overwhelms everything. There's not enough. There's not enough computational power. There's not enough time. There's not enough human beings, and there's no AI on Earth that can sift through the absolute enormity of the amount of data we produce in a single day worldwide, and that is growing exponentially. So, from a practical perspective, aside from just privacy, um, I don't need that data. You should be the one that has control of it. You should be the one to deal with it. And the only time that there should ever be an overlap is when you do something in a public space. The same thing is, in real life. I don't care what you do in your home. As long as you're not hurting anybody, it's your business. It's not mine. So that's how our data is. And you leave, it's not just TikTok. It's not just any of it. Again, these are examples, but it all goes back to one thing: is everybody is mining your data to get something out of it. And it's not you. You're not getting anything out of it. You're getting screwed over and 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 over again. TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. It's toward the ends of whoever runs that, which is why I said we should have a community driven platform where we agree on certain things, where people have a voice and a vote, and we deal with each other like adults, like civilized human beings, and we don't censor what we don't like. We don't cancel those people that are different than us. Where we take our differences and put them aside and look at our similarities, come together, and actually have good things. The old internet meme of, "This is why we can't have nice things." Well, yeah, that's why we can't have nice things, because we're allowing corporations to take all of our data. We're degenerating into poo-flinging chimps. We're killing each other over nothing, literally over nothing. Uh, I saw a good example of hurting somebody over nothing. Somebody, I think this was in the UK a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Somebody who was a fan of Twilight threw acid onto a guy's face who made a comment about not liking Twilight. That guy's probably going to be blind the rest of his life over a stupid book. It's just paper. It's just words. That's a human being's life. That's more valuable. I would burn my books before I would do that to somebody, because they're scarred for the rest of their days and they just made a comment.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible, and that's why I talked about that stuff about the lurkers behind the screen before, because it's just so easy, for someone to do things, and I don't know, if they disagree with you, then they can cause severe problems for you, basically. And so that's really what we're trying to end and stop. And on our website we talk about social networking redefined. Well, we're trying to show that it doesn't have to be the cesspool of garbage, right? It doesn't have to be a toxic dump. It can actually be a meaningful platform that you can talk about things, you can learn new things, you can find people with similar interests. I think that's really what we're going to where we're going to stand out.
Hmm.
Do you want to talk about our platform a little bit more?
Um, I mean, I feel like I'm repeating myself.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's been a pretty good talk for what we have here. We try to do about half an hour to an hour in our little talks here. So next week, I know on Sunday next week we're going to be talking about sort of all our alternative to the metaverse, because we don't call it that. Um, so yeah, we'll have Jacob Ringer joining us for that. Basil will be here. I'll be here. So the same crowd. And yeah, we'll probably have some other conversations this week too. We'll just see how things go. We've been working on trying to get this platform built up so people can actually use it, instead of just talking about everything. But if you don't have anything else, then I think we'll call it a day.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us. And this was topics on current problems with social media and the alternative, which is the platform we're building, Singularity OSN. Bye, everybody.
Bye.